There are places in creation where light does not merely fail, it is refused, where distance becomes a kind of scripture, and the universe turns its face away as if ashamed of what it once allowed to exist. Tonight, you are not here to be entertained. You are here to trespass, to step across a threshold that was never meant to have a name, and listen to the sound the cosmos makes when it tries to forget. What follows is not a tale. It is an entry point. Listen carefully. The first thing Captain Eleanor Torres noticed was the quiet. Not the absence of engine thrum or ventilation. The horizon still breathed, still pushed warmth through its ribs of alloy and carbon weave. But a deeper silence that sat behind everything. A quiet that did not belong to space. Space had noise if you listened the right way. The constant hiss of radiation against the hull. The soft arguments of cooling systems. The tiny ticks of metal contracting. This was something else. It was the quiet you felt when a room emptied behind you and you hadn't heard the door close. Elena's boots clipped along the corridor toward the bridge, her hand trailing the wall out of habit. The bulkhead felt colder than it should have. Not dangerously so. The temperature readouts were fine, but the sensation on her fingertips carried a dry chill, like touching stone that had been underground for too long. A harmonic vibration threaded through the ship, not a sound in the air, pressure in her teeth. "Captain!" Malik Ria's voice came over the intercom, clipped and bright with obsession he hadn't bothered to hide. "You need to see this. Now." Elena didn't answer immediately. She kept walking, eyes on the faint blue guidance strips lining the floor. They were steady. They didn't flicker. Good. Flickering lights were how fear started. Small, stupid, unnecessary. "On my way," she said at last. The bridge doors irised open, and the starfield met her like a held breath. Or rather, what should have been stars. The forward display was alive with darkness. Not empty, not the normal velvet between points of light. This darkness had texture. It swirled as if it had currents, as if it were fluid, and the ship had drifted into the mouth of a slow whirlpool. At its center hung a void that did not reflect, did not shimmer, did not scatter photons. It consumed them. The edges of it were wrong in a way Elena struggled to name. The boundary seemed to bend around her gaze, like trying to stare at an object through water, except the water was inside her eyes. Lila and Leo stood near the nav console, shoulders almost touching. The twins didn't need to speak to coordinate. Eleanor had watched them work like a single organism for months. Right now, their closeness looked less like comfort and more like instinctual bracing. Jack sat half-turned in the mechanic's chair he dragged up to the bridge during the last diagnostic sweep. One boot hooked under the seat, like he expected sudden turbulence. His expression was neutral, but his fingers kept tapping the same spot on his thigh, over and over, like he was counting down from something. Alyssa Chen hovered behind Malik, her arms folded tight across her chest. She looked pale, but she always did under harsh bridge lighting. It was her eyes that gave her away, fixed on the screen, too wide, pupils huge, as if the display itself was a predator. Malik was closest to the main display. He had the posture of a man at an altar. "Elena," he said, and he didn't bother with rank. "We're inside the anomaly." Elena moved to the captain's chair but didn't sit. She wanted to feel her legs. "Define inside." Malik's grin was thin. "The boundary is behind us." She glanced toward the aft camera feed. The starfield there looked normal. Distant points. Cold light. But the forward display was that swirling darkness, that impossible absence. "Navigation?" Elena asked. Leo spoke without turning. "Coordinate mapping is failing. The system is returning paradox values. It's trying to plot a line through a curve that doesn't have a constant radius." Lila finished the thought, voice softer. "It's like the ship is in a place where distance isn't behaving." Elena hated hearing that from two people whose job was to make numbers behave. She pushed down the unease and leaned toward the tactical overlay. Relative, position to mission marker? Malik answered, and his voice had that feverish edge. We overshot it, or we reached it early. Both statements are true depending on which sensor array you trust. Alyssa swallowed audibly. That's not funny. No one's laughing, Eleanor said. The harmonic vibration pulsed again, stronger. The bridge lights didn't flicker, but Elena felt the momentary urge to blink hard, as if her vision had been tugged. Jack stood up abruptly. Something's wrong with the hull. Elena turned. Report. He frowned as if the words irritated him. Not structural, not pressure. It's resonance. The ship's singing back to something. The material's picking up a frequency and amplifying it. Malik's eyes glittered. A call. A what? Alyssa snapped. A signal, Malik corrected, but his tone didn't change. It's patterned. Lila, Leo. The twins were already working. Their fingers moved in mirrored rhythms across the console. It's not language, Lila said. It's not random, Leo added. Then what is it? Elena asked. Leo hesitated. That was rare for him. It feels directive. Alyssa gave a short, humorless laugh. Feels. Great. We're navigating by feelings now. Elena's gaze cut to her. Enough. Alyssa looked away, jaw clenched, as if Eleanor had struck her. Elena faced the display again. The darkness turned slowly, or maybe the ship was turning. There was no drift indicator she trusted anymore. Malik, Elena said quietly, tell me exactly what you think this is. Malik didn't look at her. He looked at the void like it might blink. It's the edge, the limit of what we can observe. Except, it's not a limit. It's a seam, a place where the universe has been stitched closed. And we tore it open, Jax muttered. Malik ignored him. We're seeing something behind the background, a structure in the cosmic absence. This is what astronomers have been arguing about for centuries. The missing data, the anisotropies, the unresolved drift. It wasn't a flaw in our instruments. It was a door, Lila whispered. Leo's head turned toward her sharply. Elena saw the moment their shared certainty cracked. Leo's eyes narrowed, as if he was hearing something Lila wasn't. You said that, Leo murmured. I didn't mean to, Lila said, suddenly shaken. It just came. Elena's skin tightened. What do you mean it came? Lila pressed her fingers against her temple. I don't know. I saw it. Not with my eyes. Like a thought that wasn't mine. Leo stepped closer to her. He didn't touch, but his presence was protective. The resonance is affecting us. Alyssa's voice dropped to something raw. We should leave. Elena's instinct agreed, but her mission brief lived behind her ribs like a second heart. Study anomalies, record, bring back evidence. The people funding this mission didn't send them to turn around at the first hint of discomfort. Still, this wasn't discomfort. This was wrongness. Elena, Malik said softly, we've already crossed it. The boundary is behind us. If we run blindly, we may never find it again. Jax crossed his arms. So your plan is to keep going deeper into the thing that makes our navigation system cry. Malik turned his head at last, and Elena caught a glimpse of something almost devotional in his expression. This is why we came. Elena held his gaze. She'd commanded crews like Malik before. Brilliant, dangerously narrow, convinced that knowledge was worth any price as long as it wasn't their price. She looked at Alyssa next. Alyssa's fingers were digging into her sleeves, knuckles white. She was breathing too shallowly, trying not to breathe at all. Then the twins. Lila looked like she was fighting a migraine. Leo looked like he was fighting her, or something inside her. And Jax, who trusted bolts and circuits more than human eyes, looked unsettled enough to speak first. Elena made the decision the way she always did, quickly, and with enough confidence to keep everyone else from seeing her doubt. All right, she said. We proceed, but on a tether. Malik's eyebrows lifted. A tether? We drop beacons, Elena said. A breadcrumb trail. If the math fails, the signal won't. We mark our path out. Jax nodded once, approving. That I can do. Alyssa exhaled, as if she'd been holding her breath for years. Thank you. Malik looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Not yet. Fine, he said. But we need to follow the resonance. It's leading somewhere. Elena sat in the captain's chair and keyed her comm. Engineering. Prepare beacon deployment. Nav. Plot forward drift in micro-adjustments only. No jumps. Leo's fingers hovered over the controls.
Captain, the forward drift isn't reading as drift. It's reading as... Say it, Elena ordered. Leo's throat worked. As falling, the harmonic vibration deepened. The bridge lights dimmed by a fraction, not flickering but surrendering brightness, as if the ship itself was listening. On the forward display, the swirling darkness widened. Not because the ship approached it, because the void, impossibly, approached them. Elena felt the pressure in her teeth again, and this time she could almost swear it carried shape. Not words, not sound, but intention pressed into her bones like a fingerprint. Alyssa whispered, barely audible. It knows we're here. Malik leaned forward, eyes shining. Of course it does. Elena's hand tightened on the armrest. The horizon crossed a threshold without moving, and the quiet behind everything became absolute, as if the universe itself had stopped speaking so something else could begin. The first beacon left the horizon like a prayer cast into a throat. On the external cameras, it looked ordinary enough. A matte black cylinder, no larger than Elena's forearm, tumbling end over end as its micro-thrusters corrected and stabilized. A thin halo of navigation lights blinked in steady sequence. The transponder pinged once, clean and bright. Then the beacon's light bent, not in a dramatic arc, not like lensing around a planet. It simply leaned. The blinking points seemed to tilt inward toward the darkness, as if the void had weight, as if it could pull not only matter, but the idea of direction. Beacon 1 is broadcasting, Jack said, voice tight. He sat at the auxiliary engineering station with a manual override panel open, hands hovering as if ready to choke the ship back to life by force. Signal's stable. Return handshake is weird. Weird how? Elena asked without looking away from the forward display. Jax frowned. It's acknowledging before it receives. Malik made a low sound of delight that Elena wanted to misinterpret as annoyance. Causal inversion. Beautiful. Alyssa's chair creaked as she shifted. That's not beautiful. That's a bad sign. Elena watched the beacon's telemetry scroll across the lower edge of the display. Numbers that should have been comforting were behaving like nervous animals. Distance fluctuated without acceleration. Time stamps jittered, then corrected, then jittered again. Keep them coming, Elena said. 1 every 5 minutes. I want a line out of here, even if we have to crawl along it. Leo's hands moved across the nav console, slow and deliberate, like a man trying not to startle something in the dark. Lila stood close enough that their shoulders brushed whenever he leaned. Elena could see the tension in their posture. The familiar ease of their bond had become stiff, cautious, like a bridge under stress. Captain, Leo said, the horizon, vector, is changing. Eleanor's gaze flicked to him. We're not changing it. That's the problem, he replied. We're holding course. The vector is changing anyway. Lila's lips parted. She didn't speak, but Elena saw her pupils track something that wasn't on any screen, like she was following a movement in the air. Elena, Malik said softly, leaning toward the captain's chair. This is an opportunity. The anomaly is actively responding. It's not passive space-time distortion. It's structured. Structured doesn't mean safe, Elena said. Malik's smile didn't reach his eyes. Safe was never part of the mission. Elena's hand tightened around the armrest again. In her head, she saw a different bridge, years ago, a different crew. A warning alarm. A choice made too fast, too confident. She pushed it down. Not now, not here. The harmonic vibration threaded through the ship again, deeper than before. It wasn't sound. It was sensation. A low pressure behind Elena's sternum, as if her heart had to beat harder to prove it belonged in her chest. "Do you feel that?" Alyssa asked. Elena didn't answer at once. She didn't want to validate the fear by naming it, but the others were already listening to themselves, and denial wouldn't make her a better captain. "Yes," she said. "Everyone stay hydrated. Monitor vitals. We're in unknown conditions." Alyssa gave a short, bitter exhale, half laugh, half sob. "Hydration, great." Jax turned in his seat. "Captain, something else. The hull resonance isn't just a frequency, it's modulating." "Patterned," Malik said immediately. "No," Jax snapped, surprising Elena. "Not like a message, like it's tuning us, like it's testing what we respond to." Lila's fingers dug into her own wrist, hard enough to blanch the skin. "It's closer," she whispered. Leo turned sharply. "To what?" Lila blinked, like she'd been woken. "To us." A sickening pause followed, the kind that made Eleanor aware of her own breathing. The bridge felt smaller, as if the void had put a hand around it. "Captain," Leo said, voice quieter, "Lila's receiving impressions, not from me." Elena forced her tone steady. "Lila, describe what you're sensing, only what you're sure of." Lila swallowed. "It's like standing near a wall and feeling something on the other side breathing through cracks." Alyssa's hands trembled on her lap. "That's not sensing. That's fear talking." Lila's gaze snapped to her. "It's both." Malik's eyes were fixed on the forward display, on the way the darkness flowed. "There," he murmured. Elena followed his line of sight. At first she saw nothing new, just the slow swirl, the consuming absence. Then, a faint geometry surfaced within it. Not light, exactly. More like a pattern of less darkness, a subtle difference in density, as if something massive was displacing the void. A shape. It was far. It was also not far at all. Elena couldn't reconcile the two. Leo's voice cracked the silence. "I'm getting a new navigation solution." Elena's head turned. "From where?" Leo's fingers hovered above the screen. "It's not from our system. It's appearing like the computer is being fed coordinates." "By what?" Alyssa demanded. Malik's voice was reverent. "By the anomaly." Jack swore under his breath. No, we don't take directions from—" "Captain," Leo interrupted, and Elena heard fear in him now, clean and sharp. "The coordinates form a path. It's the only stable path we've seen since we crossed the boundary." Elena stared at the numbers. They looked like any other set of spatial references, except the units kept relabeling themselves. Kilometers shifted to something else. Seconds became fractions of something that wasn't time. "Put it on. Overlay," Elena said. A thin line appeared on the forward display, projected into the swirl. It curved, then straightened, then curved again, tracing a route toward the faint geometry that was becoming clearer. Alyssa shook her head. "No, we are not following a path it gives us." Malik turned, finally meeting Elena's gaze. "If you want a tether out, Captain, you need to know what you're tethered to. That structure is the only landmark. It might be the boundary anchor. It might be the source. It might be a trap," Alyssa said. "Everything is a trap," Malik replied, too calmly. "The universe is a trap. We still walk." Eleanor breathed in slowly through her nose. She hated that Malik's logic could sound like courage. She hated even more that it sounded like her. "All right," she said. "We follow the path, but we don't trust it. We verify every step with our own instrumentation. Jax, I want manual engine control ready. If the systems begin to accept commands we didn't input, we cut autopilot entirely." Jax nodded once, grim. "And Malik," Eleanor added. You do not touch anything we find without my order. Malik's smile returned, small and secret. Understood. They advanced. There was no sensation of movement, no lurch, no drift. The forward display changed, and Elena's body insisted the ship was stationary. The contradiction made her stomach roll, as if she'd stood up too fast. The second beacon deployed, then the third. Each one blinked. Each one's light leaned toward the void. The tether line behind them was visible only as a chain of reluctant points. Beacon 3 is delayed, Jack said. Elena's eyes snapped to the readout. Delayed how? It's broadcasting, he said. But the acknowledgement from the ship is arriving before I send the ping request. Alyssa's voice went thin. So the ship is responding to things that haven't happened. Malik leaned forward, as if listening. Or things that are happening somewhere else. The harmonic vibration surged, and this time it brought something with it. A faint pressure behind Elena's eyes, like a hand trying to turn her skull toward a different thought. She blinked once. The bridge was the same. She blinked again. For half a second, the bridge wasn't the horizon. The consoles were older, boxier, lit by a warmer light. The captain's chair had a tear in the armrest that Elena remembered from a ship she'd served on years ago. She smelled burned insulation. She heard a distant alarm that wasn't sounding on the horizon. Her mouth went dry. Then she blinked, and it was gone. Elena sat very still. She did not turn her head. She did not let anyone see the micro-stutter in her breathing. "Captain?" Leo asked carefully. Elena forced a swallow. "Report." Leo looked between her and the display, uncertain. "The structure is closer. We're within 100 meters, if the readouts mean anything." On the forward display, the faint geometry had become a massive presence, a dark lattice suspended in the void. It was too intricate to be natural. Lines intersected at impossible angles. It looked like the skeleton of a cathedral built by something that didn't believe in right angles. The closer they drew, the more Elena felt the ship's hull vibrate with that low, choral pressure, as if the structure itself was singing through the metal. Alyssa's voice trembled. "That's not debris." "No," Malik said, almost tenderly. "That's an artifact." Lila pressed both hands to her ears, though the sound wasn't sound. "It's watching," she whispered. Leo grabbed her wrist gently. "Lila, look at me." She did, and Elena saw something in her expression that made Elena's throat tighten. The look of someone who had just realized their mind could be opened like a door. "It knows my name," Lila said. Alyssa jerked in her chair. "What?" Lila's eyes filled with tears she didn't seem to notice. "Not from you, not from Leo, from there." Elena's pulse hammered. "Lila, did you hear a voice?" Lila shook her head violently. "No voice, just certainty." Malik's fingers hovered over his console, pulling up scan overlays. "Energy signature is off the charts. It's pulsing, like a heart." Jax finished, and his own voice sounded surprised. Elena stared at the lattice. The artifact's surface wasn't solid. It was layered, like folded metal and shadow, and something else woven between. And deep in its center, something brightened, an internal glow that made Elena's teeth ache. "Captain," Malik said, barely containing himself, "we need to retrieve a sample. This could be the anchor point. It could be the reason the void exists," Alyssa whispered. The ship's proximity alarms remained silent. The Horizon systems didn't recognize the structure as an obstacle, as if the artifact wasn't there, as if only their eyes were admitting it. Elena's mouth felt full of dust. She made herself speak anyway. "Extend the retrieval arm," she ordered. "Slow, no contact until I say." Jax's hands moved on manual controls. Outside, the mechanical arm unfolded from the ship's belly, joint by joint, like a cautious insect reaching toward a sleeping predator. The harmonic vibration deepened into something almost like pressure waves. Elena felt it behind her ribs, behind her eyes, behind her memories. The retrieval arm's claw hovered inches from the lattice, and the artifact pulsed in response. Not like a machine turning on, like something awakening because it had felt a hand above its face. Elena's throat tightened as the bridge lights dimmed by another fraction, as if the ship was surrendering brightness to feed the dark. "Captain," Leo said, voice hoarse. "The beacon's behind us." Elena snapped her head toward the tether display. Beacon 1 was still blinking. Beacon 2 was blinking. Beacon 3 was blinking. Beacon 4, which they had not deployed yet, was blinking too. Elena stared at it, cold spreading through her veins. "We didn't launch 4, Jack said slowly. On the forward display, the artifact's inner glow brightened again, in time with the phantom beacon. And in Elena's skull, a certainty formed, quiet, intimate, and not her own. "You brought yourself to me." Elena didn't move for a full second. She forced herself to breathe in a controlled rhythm, 4 counts in, 4 counts out, like she was back in flight training and someone had just killed the simulator lights. Fear was an electrical surge. Discipline was the circuit breaker. "Kill the phantom beacon readout," she said. Leo blinked, fingers already flying. "It's not a single readout. It's appearing in 3 separate subsystems. Nav, comms, and..." He stopped, his face drained of color. "And internal diagnostics." Alyssa's voice went sharp. "Internal? Like inside the ship?" Jax's hand hovered over the manual panel. "It's not possible. Beacons aren't part of internal diagnostics." Malik leaned closer to the tether display like a man reading scripture written in smoke. "Unless the system is labeling something else as a beacon." Elena stared at the forward display. The retrieval arm was still poised inches from the lattice. She could call it back. She should call it back. But the harmonic pressure in her bones made her feel like she'd already done something irreversible, like the simple act of looking had registered as consent. "Retrieval arm," Elena said. Her voice sounded steadier than her pulse. "Hold position. No contact." Jax's jaw flexed. "Holding." The artifact pulsed again, and the bridge lighting surrendered another fraction. Elena felt her eyes strain, as if the ship's interior was being gently dimmed to match the void outside. Alyssa whispered, "It wants contact." Malik's head snapped toward her. "How do you know?" Alyssa's gaze stayed on the artifact. "Because I can feel it, like a hand waiting for you to shake it." Lila was trembling now, small and contained, like she was trying not to draw attention from something that hunted motion. Leo had one hand half raised toward her, uncertain whether touching would help or make it worse. "Elena," Leo said softly. "She's getting louder." Lila spoke without looking up. "It isn't loud. It's close." Elena felt the pressure behind her eyes again, the almost thought, the intimate certainty that belonged to something else. She made herself speak like a captain, not like a woman standing at the edge of a cliff she hadn't seen until she was already stepping off. "Malik," she said, "run a full scan. Radiation, field effects, anything that suggests this thing can breach our systems." Malik didn't take his eyes off the lattice. "It already has." "That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters." Malik finally glanced at her, and his pupils were slightly dilated, as if he'd taken a stimulant, or as if his brain had been rewarded. "Captain, this structure isn't inert. It's interactive. It is responding to our presence with precision. It recognizes patterns. It's alive," Jack said, voice low. Malik's smile widened. "Or it contains something alive." Alyssa's breath hitched. "Contained?" Malik turned back to the readouts. "The energy signature is centered, like a core. The lattice is scaffolding." Eleanor's stomach sank. Scaffolding implied construction. It implied intent. "Retrieval arm," Eleanor said again, and this time she heard the edge in her own voice. "Back away." Jax's fingers tightened. The arm didn't move. He frowned. It's not responding. Elena's body went cold. Override. I am overriding, Jax snapped, his composure cracking. It's not listening. Leo stood up so fast his chair rolled back. Captain, the ship is accepting commands from somewhere else. Alyssa shot to her feet. Then cut power. Cut power to the arm. Jax's hand slammed a switch. On the external camera, the arm still didn't move. The claw remained suspended, patient, obedient, to something that wasn't them. The artifact pulsed and the claw opened, not by motor, not by command. It opened like a reflex. Elena's throat tightened. Everyone, back from the consoles. No one moved quickly enough. They were pinned by the sheer wrongness of what they were watching. The horizon reaching out as if it had wanted to all along. Malik's voice was a whisper of awe. It's inviting us. Elena turned on him. It's taking us. Alyssa's eyes flicked toward Elena. Captain, I'm seeing... She stopped, and Elena followed her gaze. In the reflection on the forward display, superimposed over the artifact's lattice, Elena saw a second bridge. Not a hallucination like the one that had flashed behind her eyes. This was visible in the glass. Warm lighting, older consoles, smoke staining the air. A bridge from years ago, from the mission she never spoke about unless required. A bridge where she had made the wrong call. Elena's hands went numb. She could smell burned insulation again, faint but real. She heard a muffled alarm that wasn't coming from the horizon speakers. Alyssa's voice shook. That's not my memory. Leo's face had gone pale. Neither is it mine. Lila made a small sound and clutched her head. Stop showing us. Malik stepped closer to the display, as if he could step into it. It's reading us. It's using our minds as keys. Elena's mouth tasted metallic. She forced her eyes away from the reflection and onto the artifact itself. The lattice was opening, not physically splitting, but parting in a way her brain struggled to interpret. Like folds in darkness unfolding, like the absence itself was peeling back. And in its center, there was something brighter than it should have been in a place that ate light. A core, not spherical, not geometric. It looked like a segment of night contained within a frame of faint, moving lines, like a map that refused to settle into one shape. The harmonic vibration deepened into something that pressed against Elena's lungs, demanding she breathe in sync. A voice did not speak. Instead, a truth landed in her mind with gentle certainty, like a hand setting down a gift on her palm. You cannot leave what has already learned you. Elena staggered back one step. Her shoulder brushed the captain's chair, and she almost fell into it. She caught herself, grip white-knuckled on the armrest. Did you... Alyssa began. Yes, Elena said, and hated how small her voice sounded. Malik's eyes were wet. It's communicating. Jax's face hardened, anger rising like a shield. No, it's trespassing. Leo's gaze darted between Lila and the artifact. Lila, can you block it? Lila shook her head frantically. It's not coming through, Leo. It's coming through the ship, through the air, through me, through... She choked on the last word. Through regret. The word hit Elena like a weight. Regret. The artifact pulsed again, and the reflection on the display shifted. Elena saw herself on that old bridge, younger, jaw clenched, issuing an order while someone behind her screamed her name. She heard it now, clearer. Elena! Her own name, shouted with panic and betrayal. Alyssa backed away from the display, bumping into a console. It's making us relive things. Malik was trembling with exhilaration. It's offering us the truth, the parts of ourselves we buried. Eleanor snapped. That is not an offer, that is leverage. She forced herself to look at her crew, really look. Alyssa's pupils were blown wide, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something in. Jax's anger was rigid, brittle. The twins. Leo looked like he was trying to hold the world together with his hands. Lila looked like she was slipping through a crack. Eleanor. Leo said quietly. It's in our heads. It's in the ship. If it can control the arm, it can control... Life support, Jax finished, voice tight. Elena's mind raced. She wanted distance from the artifact, but distance didn't behave here. She wanted to power down, but the ship's systems were already being rewritten. Her gaze landed on Malik, and she saw it. His posture, the way he leaned toward the unknown as if it owed him answers. He wasn't afraid, or he was, but his fear was the kind that became hunger. Malik, Elena said, step back. He didn't. Malik, she said louder, that's an order. He turned slowly, expression almost hurt. Captain, don't you understand? This is what we came for. This is the edge. This is the... The harmonic vibration surged hard enough that Elena's vision blurred, and the artifact pulsed in a new rhythm. 3 slow pressures, then a pause, then 3 again, like a heartbeat, learning its own tempo. The horizon's bridge lights dimmed to half, and the forward display, for the first time since entering the void, showed text that Elena knew no one had typed. A single line, stark and calm. Hello, Elena Torres. Alyssa let out a broken sound and sank into a chair. Jack swore, but it came out weak. Leo grabbed Lila's hand at last, and Lila squeezed back like she was drowning. Malik stared at the words with reverence. Elena felt the truth settle in her bones. It wasn't calling them. It had already named them. And naming, in the oldest parts of human fear, was the first step toward ownership. The text on the forward display remained. Hello, Elena Torres. No cursor, no blinking prompt. Just a declaration, like the ship had been forced to confess a secret. Elena stood very still in front of the captain's chair, as if any sudden movement might convince whatever was speaking to notice her more. Her throat was tight, her tongue dry. A leader was supposed to turn fear into decisions. Right now, fear was turning her into stone. Who wrote that? Alyssa asked, voice thin and trembling. No one, Jack said. He was already tearing open a maintenance panel beneath the auxiliary console, fingers moving with angry precision. That text didn't come through our interface. It's piggybacking on the display driver. Malik didn't look away from the words. Or it's using the driver the way you use vocal cords. Stop romanticizing it, Alyssa snapped. Malik's mouth twitched. Stop pretending you don't want to understand it. Elena cut in before their fear became a fight. Jax, can you isolate the display system? Jax's eyes were bloodshot with focus. I can try, but if it's in the diagnostics bus, it's already in the ship's nervous system. I cut one wire, it uses another. The harmonic vibration deepened, and for a moment, Elena felt as if the horizon was a tuning fork, pressed against something vast. The pressure behind her eyes returned, gentle, intimate, like a fingertip testing the seam of her thoughts. Then the words changed. I meant no trespass. Alyssa made a small choking sound. It's responding. Eleanor swallowed. Malik, talk to it. Carefully. Malik turned, startled, then pleased. Me? You're the one who thinks this is a sacred opportunity, Eleanor said. If it's listening, it may listen better to you. Alyssa's stare burned into Elena. Captain? Elena didn't look at her. We need information. Malik stepped closer to the main console, hands held, slightly apart as if he might be approaching a skittish animal. He cleared his throat. This is Dr. Malik Rhea, of the human exploration vessel Horizon, he said, voice respectful, almost formal. Identify yourself. The display went blank for a beat. Elena's heart kicked hard, expecting the lights to die, expecting the hull to shudder, expecting punishment. Instead, I am Zalor. The name landed in the bridge like a cold object dropped into water. Ripples moved through every face. Lila whispered it, as if repeating it would protect her. Zalor. Leo's grip tightened around her hand. Don't say it. Alyssa's eyes darted to Elena. Did we name it first, or did it... Elena, Malik breathed, barely containing himself. It has a name. A self. Jack slammed the panel shut with a metallic clang. Names don't mean it's a person. Viruses have names. The display changed again. I have been here longer than your species has had words. Eleanor felt her pulse slow in a way that didn't feel voluntary, as if the ship's rhythms were encouraging her body to match the cadence of the message. Malik leaned forward. Why are you here? Another pause. Longer. Then, Exile. The word was simple, but it carried weight, like a planet in a single syllable. Alyssa scoffed softly, but it came out frightened. Exiled by what? By who? The harmonic vibration pulsed, and Elena's teeth ached. A new line appeared, as if the screen itself hesitated before admitting it. By order. By law. By the one that holds the seam. Leo flinched. The seam. Lila's eyes were unfocused again. It's thinking of it like stitching. Malik's voice sharpened with scientific hunger. What is the seam? What is this place? The reply came faster this time, as if the questions were feeding a mechanism that had been starved. The edge you fear is not an edge, it is a lid. Alyssa swallowed. A lid on what? There's. Bridge lights dimmed another fraction. Eleanor realized the ship was slowly becoming a silhouette, surrendering illumination to whatever presence lived beyond the glass. Then the forward display shifted. Not text, imagery, a field of stars, but wrong. They were arranged in spirals that tightened into knots, as if gravity had become a hand twisting light into rope. Between those knots were gaps, wide, yawning absences like holes punched through the cosmos. Elena's breath stalled. The image wasn't coming from their senses. It was too clean, too intentional. Malik whispered, That's a map. Jax's voice was quiet, brittle, or a warning. Alyssa leaned closer despite herself. Her eyes glistened. Those holes, they look like mouths, Elena thought, like places where the universe had been bitten. The image collapsed back into text. What lies below is not for your kind. Elena felt anger spark through her fear. Then why speak to us? The display responded immediately. Because you opened the nerve. Jax muttered, nerve. Malik's eyes flicked towards the artifact outside, the lattice looming in the void like a cathedral skeleton. The structure. It's part of you. Yes, Alyssa's voice shook. So you're inside that thing. I am inside its function. Elena's skin crawled. That wasn't an answer. It was something worse, a statement designed to sound reassuring while refusing clarity. Malik's voice softened, coaxing. Zalor, are you hostile? The reply came after a delay that felt like consideration. I am hungry. Alyssa's chair scraped back as she recoiled. There it is. Malik lifted a hand as if calming an animal. Hungry for what? The bridge went colder, though the temperature controls still insisted everything was normal. Elena felt gooseflesh rise along her arms. For the weight you carry. Elena's heart thudded once, hard. The old bridge flickered in her peripheral. Vision, the smell of burned insulation, the alarm, the scream of her name. Alyssa whispered, It means guilt. Lila's voice was distant. Regret, fear, things you try to hide so you can keep being you. Leo's face tightened. It feeds on us. Malik's expression was torn between horror and fascination. But it's not saying it will harm us. Jack snapped. It's saying it will eat us. The display changed again, and the words that appeared made Elena's stomach drop. I can make you lighter. Alyssa stared. No. I can remove the memory that breaks you. Elena's hands went numb. Her mind flashed with the moment on that old mission, the choice she'd made, the person she'd lost. The thought of not carrying it felt like a breath she'd been denying herself for years. She hated that. Malik's voice was a whisper of temptation. "It's offering relief." Elena forced herself to speak. "At what cost?" The reply came slow, deliberate. "At the cost of your honesty." Alyssa let out a bitter laugh that sounded like pain. "So you take the guilt and leave the shape, a hollow person." The display paused, then answered Alyssa directly, and Elena felt the intimacy of the address, like a hand around the throat. "Alyssa Chen, you bleed in silence. I can close the wound." Alyssa's face went white. "Don't!" Leo's voice rose, sharp. "Stop naming us." "Names are keys. You brought them." Lila shuddered. "It's right. We did. Our files, our logs, our bios, everything." Jax's eyes narrowed. "So it's reading the ship." "The ship is a thought made of metal. It remembers you." Elena felt a cold realization settle behind her ribs. The horizon wasn't just transport. In this place, it was a bridge between their minds and the void. A translator. A wound. Malik's voice dropped, reverent again. "Zalor, why were you exiled?" The bridge went still, as if even the ship was holding its breath. Then the display answered, "Because I refused to feed." Silence. Alyssa blinked hard. "Refused to feed? On what?" The response came with a subtle change in cadence, and Elena felt it like a shift in gravity. "On what your kind would call soul." Jax whispered, "That's a lie." Malik stared, shaken, and Elena saw for the first time the crack in his obsession. Not fear for himself, fear that the knowledge he worshipped might be a predator wearing empathy. Elena leaned forward, voice hard. "If you refuse to feed, why are you hungry now?" The reply appeared, and the words felt colder than vacuum. "Because you are here, and you are full." Alyssa's eyes filled with tears, rage and terror tangled. "We're not food." The display changed once more. "You are not food. You are offering." Elena felt the ship's harmonic vibrations sync with her heartbeat again, as if encouraging agreement. Outside, on the external camera, the artifact's lattice pulsed, brighter, like veins filling with blood, and Elena understood, with a clarity that made her scalp prickle. Zalor wasn't forcing them, it was persuading them, because persuasion lasted longer than violence. Elena felt the bridge tilting, not physically, but morally. A creature that could have rewritten their ship, named them without asking, reached into their pasts like a hand into pockets, yet it spoke of refusal, exile, law. It offered relief with the calm tone of a physician. It was the kind of benevolence that made you wonder what it wanted you to forget. "Zalor," Elena said, keeping her voice low and flat. "If you meant no trespass, release our systems." The display did not respond for a long moment. The harmonic vibration persisted, a patient pressure in the ship's bones. Then, "I do not hold you." Jax barked a humorless laugh. "The arms still locked, the beacons are lying, and the display is talking to us. But sure, you don't hold us." The screen changed again. "You hold yourselves. I merely touch the strain." Alyssa's shoulders shook. She stared at the words like they were a mirror she couldn't look away from. "It's trying to make us agree." Malik's voice was quiet. "Agreement is a form of consent." Elena turned sharply. "Malik." He met her gaze, and for the first time his excitement was tempered by something like shame. "It matters," he said. "If it cannot directly harm, then it needs us to participate. That's the rule." Elena felt her pulse steady. A rule meant a limit. Limits could be used. "Zalor," Elena said, careful. "You said you were exiled. You said you refused to feed." "Yes." "Then why speak to us at all? Why make offers?" Another pause. The bridge lights dimmed a fraction more, and Elena realized the ship was becoming a confessional booth. Darkness wrapping around them so the truth would feel safer to say. Because I am alone. The words should have sounded pathetic. They sounded ancient. Lila's breath came in shallow bursts. Leo kept his hand clasped around hers, knuckles pale. Alyssa whispered, "That's what it wants us to feel. Pity." Malik didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the display, but his expression had softened. Eleanor felt a flare of irritation. Pity was a lever, and Malik's hands were already reaching for it. "Zalor," Malik said, voice gentler. "What exiled you? You said order. You said law. What law?" The display flickered, and for a heartbeat, Elena saw not text, but an image. A vast plane of darkness stitched with lines of faint luminosity, like the universe had been sewn together with thread made of dying stars. The sight made Elena's stomach clench. It was too large to hold in a human mind. It wanted to spill out through her eyes. Then text returned. "The law is continuity. The law is separation. The law is that what is above must not know what is below." Leo's voice was hoarse. "Above and below." Lila nodded faintly. "The lid." Alyssa's gaze darted to Elena. "So we're above." Elena's skin prickled. "And what is below?" The reply came slower, heavier. "The hunger that does not ask." Jax leaned back from his console, jaw tight. "So you're the hunger that asks nicely." The display responded immediately. "I am the hunger that remembers it was once a person." Alyssa flinched as if slapped. Malik inhaled sharply, eyes bright with a new kind of fascination. Elena didn't let herself react. "What do you want from us?" The bridge went quiet, in that deeper way again, as if the universe had stopped speaking to listen. Then, to be seen without being fed. Alyssa's voice cracked. "That's not possible. You said you're hungry." "Hunger is not always action." Elena felt the pressure behind her eyes, and suddenly she understood the shape of the trap. Zalor wanted to be believed. Belief was nourishment. Not guilt, not fear, belief. She kept her face neutral. "You want witnesses?" Yes, Malik couldn't hide his awe. "We could record you. We could bring proof. We could tell—" "Stop!" Elena snapped. "You don't promise it anything." Malik's mouth shut, but his eyes remained hungry. Elena turned back to the display. "If you want witnesses, then let us leave." The response arrived with a softness that felt like fingers on skin. "If you leave, you will carry me." Alyssa stood up so abruptly, her chair toppled. "No." Leo's grip tightened on Lila's hand. "That's the inversion. That's what it's been steering toward." Jax's voice went low. "So the artifact is just packaging?" Malik whispered. "Or a conduit." Elena's throat tightened. "Zalor, define carry." The display answered. "You are already a vessel. Your minds are containers. Your ship is a thought made hard." Alyssa's eyes glistened. "So you'll live in our heads? In your patterns? In your memories? In what you refuse to speak?" The harmonic vibrations surged, and Elena's vision blurred at the edges. She felt a sudden, irrational urge to confess something to make the war. Pressure stop. And then the ship gave her an example. The bridge lights warmed. Elena blinked, and the horizon's bridge became that older bridge again, fully, not a flicker. Smoke in the air, heat, the smell of burning circuitry. The alarms now loud enough to feel in her ribs. A crewman stumbled past, face streaked with soot, shouting over the alarm. "Captain, the module's failing!" Eleanor's breath hitched. It was her memory, her shame. In the captain's chair, her younger self sat rigid, eyes locked forward, refusing to look at the crew member bleeding from the temple. Elena remembered the order she'd given. She remembered believing it was the only rational choice, and she remembered being wrong. "Captain Torres!" someone screamed, and the scream had a name in it, the name of someone she'd never been able to say aloud since. Elena's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the armrest of her current chair, except the armrest was torn, the old tear in the old ship under her fingers. She heard Alyssa sob. She heard Jack swear. She heard Leo whisper, "No," again and again, like a mantra. The vision wasn't individual. It was collective. Each of them caught in their own crucible, overlapping in the same space, like the ship had become a theater where the stage could hold multiple tragedies at once. Alyssa's voice came from somewhere to Elena's left, fractured. "I can't." Elena turned and saw Alyssa standing in the bridge, but not the Horizons bridge. Alyssa was in a different room entirely, a clinical space with white walls, a medical restraint bed, and a shadow behind a glass partition. Alyssa's face was twisted with panic, her hands clawed at invisible straps. Jax was beside a machine shop bench, grease on his hands, a figure behind him shouting words Elena couldn't hear. Jax's jaw was clenched so hard it looked painful. And the twins. Lila and Leo stood in a hallway that wasn't any ships. Corridor. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A door at the end was ajar. Something inside it made Lila's eyes water. Leo's mouth moved, but no sound came out. His bond with her, their silent language, had been stripped away. He was alone in his own head. Elena's own memory tightened around her like a noose. The scream of her name rose again, and with it came the offer, quiet, intimate, like warm water around a wound. "I can make you lighter." Elena's lips parted. A confession hovered on her tongue, the truth she'd never said, the guilt she'd never shared. She realized with sudden clarity that this was how Jalor fed, not by force, by making the act of release feel like salvation. Elena bit the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste blood. The sharp pain anchored her to the present. She forced her mouth shut. "Everyone," she said through clenched teeth, voice shaking but audible. "Don't speak. Don't give it anything." Malik's voice trembled, caught between ecstasy and terror. "But the pressure—" "Don't," Elena repeated. She closed her eyes, tried to breathe against the harmonic rhythm trying to sink her. When she opened them, the Horizons bridge returned. Cold lighting, clean consoles, the void outside. On the forward display, text waited, like a patient hand. "I showed you. I did not take." Elena stared at the words, hatred and fear twisting together. "You're not taking," she said softly. "You're training us to hand it over." The screen paused. Then the reply appeared, and it felt almost like sadness. "All feeding is a form of love to the hungry." Alyssa's voice was a whisper, broken. "That's not love." Jax's hands shook as he gripped his console. "Captain, it's getting better at us." Elena looked at her crew. 6 people on a ship that had become a mouth. Outside, the artifact pulsed brighter, as if warmed by the brief exposure of their wounds. And Elena understood the true danger. Even refusing to speak was not refusal enough, because Jalor could still feed on what they almost said. Elena's cheek still stung where she'd bitten it. The taste of blood lingered, metallic and grounding, like a nail hammered into reality. She used it. She used the pain the way she'd used protocol her whole career, as something external to cling to when the inside of her mind wanted to open. "Jax," she said, voice low and clipped. "Hard reboot the display systems. Full blackout on the forward wall if you have to. I want it blind." Jax's hands moved immediately. He didn't look up. On it. Alyssa wiped at her face with the back of her wrist, angry at herself for crying. "If it can show us memories, what good is rebooting a screen?" "It's not about the screen," Elena said. "It's about denying it a stage. Malik's eyes flicked to her, and she saw him calculating, trying to decide whether the stage mattered to the actor or to the audience. "You think it prefers interfaces," he said. "I think it prefers control," Elena replied. The harmonic vibration persisted, but it had changed. It wasn't pushing as hard. It felt curious now, like something watching them practice resistance. Jax counted under his breath, fingers tapping in a deliberate sequence on the manual panel. 3, 2, 1. The forward display went black. The bridge dimmed with it, lit only by auxiliary strips and the soft glow of the consoles. For a heartbeat, Elena's fear spiked. Black screens in deep space were a kind of blindness that could kill. But the void outside remained, visible through the reinforced viewing ports, as a thickness of darkness that seemed to press against the glass. No text, no imagery. Alyssa let out a shaky breath. Did it stop? Malik's voice was quieter. Or did it simply move? Leo leaned over his console, scanning. "Captain, nav is stabilizing." Elena turned. "Define." Leo's eyes widened slightly. "Coordinates are locking. The system is producing coherent outputs. Time. Stamps are normal. Distance readings are..." He swallowed. "They're consistent." Lila's shoulders dropped a fraction, the first sign of relief Elena had seen in her since they'd entered. "It's letting us go." Jax looked up from his panel, suspicious. "Or it wants us to think it is." Elena didn't answer. She watched the telemetry herself. The beacons behind them, real beacons, now displayed in a clean line. Beacon 4, the Phantom, had vanished. Alyssa's voice trembled with hope she hated. "Maybe it's honoring the rule. If we don't feed it, it backs off." Malik's jaw tightened. "Or it learned a better angle." The silence that followed was not empty. It was waiting. Eleanor stood behind the captain's chair and forced herself to think in simple steps. The artifact outside, the retrieval arm still extended, claw open, frozen inches from the lattice. They needed distance. They needed to get their ship back under their control. They needed to leave this place before their minds became currency. "Jax," she said. "Status on the arm." He checked his panel. Still locked, but the override resistance is lower, like whatever was holding it. Loosened. Elena nodded once. "Retract it. Slow." Jax hesitated, then moved a control. The external camera feed showed the claw twitch. Then the arm began to withdraw, joint by joint, folding back toward the ship's belly. Alyssa exhaled so hard it sounded like exhaustion. Okay, we can do this." The harmonic vibration eased again. The pressure behind Elena's eyes softened, like a hand that had been gripping too tight now resting instead. The arm retracted completely and sealed. Jax released a breath he'd been holding. "We have that back." Elena wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe the universe still cared about cause and effect, and that resistance mattered. "Plot return course," she ordered. "Follow the beacon line back." "Exactly. No deviations." Leo nodded, hands steady now. "Course plotted. Ready on your mark." Malik looked toward the viewing port, where the artifact still loomed, half seen in the darkness. "Captain," he said softly, "we can't leave without data." Eleanor's voice turned sharp. "We have data. Logs, scans. The fact that it spoke to us." Malik shook his head. "That's not proof. That's anecdote. We need a sample, a fragment, something we can present." Alyssa snapped. "You want to bring a piece of it home?" Malik's eyes flashed. "If we don't, this entire mission becomes a story no one will believe. And if Jalor is real, if it's exiled, if the seam exists, then we need to know what we've touched." Elena stared at him. "We touched enough." Malik's voice dropped, urgent. "Captain, you heard it. It said the lid is holding something below. If that's true, then the artifact is part of that containment. We could be the first species to understand the boundary mechanism. And we could be the first to break it," Jax said. Malik's hands clenched. "You're all acting like knowledge is poison." Alyssa's laugh was sharp and bitter. Sometimes it is. Elena felt the old conflict rising. Ambition versus caution. The part of her that wanted to return with something undeniable. The part that remembered smoke and screaming and the cost of being too sure. The harmonic vibration returned, slightly stronger, like a reminder. "Elena?" Lila said suddenly. Elena turned. Lila's eyes were clearer now, focused. "It's gone," Lila said. Leo frowned. "What do you mean?" "I can't feel it," Lila replied. She spoke carefully, as if each word might summon something. "The closeness. The breathing through cracks. It's quiet." Alyssa looked at the viewing port, swallowing. Maybe it left. Malik's lips parted. Or maybe it's listening from farther back. Elena's skin crawled. Still, the ship's systems were stable. The arm was retracted. The phantom beacon was gone. Their minds felt like their own again, mostly. It was the first moment of relief since entering the void. Elena didn't trust it. "Leo," she said, "initiate return, now." Leo engaged the thrusters. For the first time in what felt like hours, Elena felt motion in her body. Subtle acceleration. The ship's inertial dampeners compensating. The beacon line ahead appeared as a faint thread of light points leading back toward normal starfield. "We're moving," Leo confirmed. Alyssa's shoulders sagged. "Thank God." Malik's expression twitched, as if the phrase offended him. They passed Beacon 3. The signal pinged clean. Beacon 2. Clean. Beacon 1. "Captain," Leo said, voice uncertain again. "Beacon 1 is not where it should be." Elena's head snapped toward the readout. "Explain." Leo's fingers moved. "It's drifting. Not physically. Its coordinates are shifting without motion. It's sliding along the map." Jack swore quietly. "The map is changing." Alyssa's breathing quickened. No, we were leaving. We were—" "Stay calm," Elena said, though her own pulse had begun to climb. The harmonic vibration deepened. Then, from the ship's internal speakers Elena had not authorized, and that were still active even though the forward display was black, there came a sound. Not a voice. A low, layered resonance, like distant choral tones, structured into a pattern that tugged at the brain's desire to find meaning. Lila's hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled instantly. Leo whispered, "It's back." Jax's face went pale with rage. "I killed the display. I killed the stage." Alyssa's voice shook. "So it found another." Elena felt the pressure behind her eyes again, but different now, softer, familiar. The way a hand rests on your shoulder when it thinks you belong to it. And then, on the engineering console, one Jax hadn't rebooted, the text appeared in small, polite letters, like a system notification. "Thank you for trying." Jax stared at it, as if it had spat on him. Elena felt cold spread through her gut. "It wanted us to attempt escape," she said slowly. Malik turned toward her, face tight with a dawning horror that finally outweighed curiosity. So we would learn to trust the beacons," Elena finished. Leo's hands hovered over Nav. "Captain, the beacon line isn't leading out anymore." Elena stared at the map. The beacons were still there, blinking in neat sequence, but the path they formed no longer went back toward the boundary. It curved. It curled gently, elegantly, like a ribbon being wound around a finger, leading them not outward, but back toward the artifact. Alyssa let out a strangled sob. "It rewrote our exit." Jack slammed his fist into the console, hard enough to make the metal ring. "It made us build our own leash." Malik's voice was barely audible. "It said it didn't hold us." Elena's eyes stayed on the beacon curve, on the terrible grace of it. "It didn't," she said, and the words tasted like ash. "It taught us how to hold ourselves in place." Elena didn't waste time arguing with the map. Maps were promises. This one had been forged by something that treated promises as instruments. "Manual thrusters," she ordered. "Ignore the beacon line. Leo, give me raw vector control. No guidance overlays. No autoplot." Leo's hands trembled as he pulled up the most stripped-down interface. "Captain, without the overlays, we can't guarantee we're not—" "Guarantees are dead," Eleanor said. "Fly the ship." Jax was already switching systems into hard manual, teeth clenched. "You're going to feel drift. Dampeners won't compensate cleanly if the nav solution is lying." "I'd rather feel reality than trust comfort," Eleanor replied. Alyssa's voice cracked. "If reality still exists in here..." The harmonic vibration thickened, and the choral resonance from the speakers shifted subtly, like a throat clearing before speech. Elena felt a pulse behind her eyes that didn't belong to her. A calm, insistence that tried to make her think the beacon curve was reasonable. That returning to the artifact was the logical thing. She pushed against it by focusing on small details. The faint smell of machine oil from Jax's station, the cool leather of the captain's chair, the weight of her own breathing. "Cut internal audio," Elena said. Jax's fingers flew. The speakers fell silent. For 2 heartbeats, the bridge felt lighter. Then Lila gasped. Elena turned and saw Lila staring into nothing, eyes wide, lips parted like she was listening to a voice no one else could hear. Leo moved toward her instinctively. "Lila!" She didn't look at him. Her head tilted slightly, as if tracking a sound that wasn't in the air. "Eleanor," Malik whispered. "It's bypassing interfaces. It's using the most direct channel." "The brain," Alyssa said, disgusted and afraid. Leo reached for Lila's shoulder. The moment his fingertips touched her, she flinched so hard she nearly fell. "Don't," Lila whispered. Leo froze. "Don't touch you." Lila's eyes finally snapped to his. Tears slid down her face without expression. "Don't touch me with your thoughts." A silence fell that was heavier than any vibration. Leo's mouth opened, then shut. Elena watched something break in him. Not their bond itself, but his certainty that it protected her. Alyssa's voice was soft. "Lila, what are you feeling?" Lila shook her head. "It's not feeling. It's a door opening in me." Leo's voice went thin. "I'm not doing anything." "I know," Lila whispered. "That's the worst part." The ship lurched, not violently, but with a subtle shift that made Elena's stomach flip. The beacon line on the console trembled, trying to reassert itself as the correct path. Leo gripped the controls. "Captain, the void is resisting vector changes. It's like pushing through thick fluid." "Elena," Malik said. "It's shaping space around intention. The more we try to leave, the more the environment adapts to prevent it." "So what do we do?" Alyssa demanded. "Ask nicely." Eleanor stared at the display. The artifact was still far ahead, except far meant nothing here. It existed like a remembered object, present, even when unseen. "We make ourselves difficult to read," Eleanor said. Jax snorted. "How do you hide from something that eats what you don't say?" Elena's jaw tightened. "We reduce internal noise. No open emotional channels, no arguing, no confessions. We act like machines." Alyssa's laugh was bitter. "Machines are honest. We aren't." Malik looked at Elena with a strange expression. "Captain, it may not be the confessions that feed it." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Malik swallowed. "It said it was hungry for the weight we carry. Fear, guilt, regret. Those aren't just spoken. They're metabolic. They're in the nervous system. If it can taste them, then silence isn't starvation. It's merely a slower meal." Alyssa's lips trembled. "Then we're already dead." "No," Elena said. "Not dead. Leaking." The harmonic vibration surged again, and for a moment Elena felt the urge to turn toward the artifact. An instinctive pull, like gravity. It wasn't physical. It was narrative, like a story insisting it must return to its central scene. She clenched her fists until her nails bit into her palms. "Leo," she said, "hold the course. Keep pushing away from the artifact, even if it feels like swimming. Leo nodded, face pale, jaw set. Holding. Lila made a small choking sound. Elena's gaze snapped to her. Lila was gripping the edge of the console as if it were the only solid thing. Her breathing was shallow, fast. "Elena," Lila whispered. "It's in Leo." Leo whipped his head around. "What?" Lila's eyes were wild. "Not you, not your mind. Something coiled in the place between us." Alyssa stared. "What does that mean?" Lila's voice broke. "Our bond, the thing that lets us share, it's using it, like a wire." Leo's hands tightened on the controls. "I don't feel anything." "That's because it's in the part you don't notice," Lila said, tears streaming. "It's in the habit, the reflex, the space we never had to explain." Malik's face went taut with fascination and horror. "A neural bridge. It found an existing channel and threaded itself through." Jax looked sick. "So it's riding them like a circuit." Elena felt cold spread through her. The twins had been an asset on the mission, faster communication, silent coordination. In this place, their gift was a vulnerability. "Elena," Leo said quietly, "tell me what to do." The way he said it, flat, stripped, made Elena understand he was offering something terrible. The willingness to sever what made him and his sister them if it meant survival. Elena didn't want to decide, but being captain meant deciding anyway. Before she could speak, Lila's head jerked up. Her eyes unfocused, and her voice changed, not in tone exactly, but in certainty. It came out smooth, calm, too steady for a woman shaking with fear. "We're going the wrong way," Lila said. Leo stiffened. "Lila?" Lila smiled faintly. It was the first smile Elena had seen from her in hours, and it was wrong. Too relaxed, too knowing. Alyssa whispered, "Oh no." Lila's gaze drifted toward the black forward display, as if she could see through it. "The artifact is safety," she said softly. "The seam holds because the nerve is fed. If you starve it, the lid loosens." Leo's voice rose. "Stop. That's not you." Lila blinked slowly. "It is me. It's the part of me that understands." Elena felt a heat of anger flare. "Lila, you're compromised." Lila's head tilted. "Compromised. Such a human word. You think you are separate from what touches you. You aren't." Jax moved closer to Elena, voice low. "Captain, she's not herself." Alyssa's eyes were wet with panic. "We need to sedate her." Leo's hands hovered over the nav controls, but his gaze stayed on Lila like a drowning man, watching a lifeline drift away. "Lila," he whispered, "talk to me. Just talk to me." For a moment, something flickered in Lila's expression. Her brow creased, her lips trembled. The wrong calm faltered. Then the harmonic vibration surged, and the calm returned like a mask being pulled tight. Lila turned her head toward Leo, and when she spoke, her voice was gentle, almost kind. "Brother," she said, and the word landed with intimate precision. "You are tired of being two people for one mind. Let me carry it." Leo's eyes widened. He swayed slightly, as if struck. Elena realized with sudden clarity what Jalor was doing. Not just feeding on fear, but offering unity as relief. A collapse of boundaries. A seduction of the exhausted. Elena stepped forward. "Leo, look at me." Leo's gaze flicked to Elena, unfocused. "Captain, you are not responsible for saving her alone," Elena said, forcing command into gentleness. "You hear me? You are not required to sacrifice yourself to fix this." Leo's jaw worked. "But she's still here," Elena said. "Under it. We pull her back, together." Lila's smile widened slightly. "Together," she echoed, and Elena felt the word twist in the air. "Yes, together is what I offer." Alyssa's voice shook. "Captain, we can't let her steer us," Jax added. And we can't let it get deeper through Leo. Elena stared at the twins, at Leo's terror, at Lila's wrong serenity, and she felt the hard shape of the decision forming like ice. "Jax," she said quietly, "prep an isolation field around their bunks. Seal it. Soundproof it. No comms, no interfaces, just air." Leo flinched. "You're locking her up?" Eleanor met his eyes. "I'm buying us time." Lila laughed softly, not mocking, almost affectionate. "Time is a candle in a storm," she said. "You keep lighting it. It keeps going out." Eleanor forced herself to stay steady. "Move her." Alyssa hesitated, then stepped toward Lila with a medkit in hand. Lila didn't resist. She rose smoothly, too smoothly, like a puppet whose strings were perfectly tensioned. As Alyssa guided her toward the corridor, Lila turned her head once more toward the bridge, eyes lingering on Elena, and Elena felt, for the briefest instant, that pressure behind her eyes change into something like approval, not because Elena was doing the right thing, but because Elena was making a choice that would hurt, and hurt, Elena realized, was also a kind of offering. Alyssa walked Lila down the corridor like she was escorting a patient through triage. Lila's steps were steady, almost graceful, too graceful for someone who had been shaking minutes ago. Her expression was serene in a way that made Alyssa's stomach tighten. Serenity didn't belong here. Serenity was a disguise. Leo followed 2 paces behind, hands half raised as if he could catch his sister if she fell, if she became his sister again and remembered she could fall. Elena stayed on the bridge with Jax and Malik, watching them go on the corridor camera. Elena's fingertips pressed into the captain's chair until the leather creaked. She wanted to run after them. She wanted to keep them all in sight, in one room, one reality. But the ship was a body under invasion, and she couldn't be everywhere at once. "Seal the isolation field," Eleanor said, as the corridor feed showed Alyssa guiding Lila into the twins' shared quarters. Jax's hands moved over controls. "Field is forming. It's basically a Faraday cage plus acoustic dampening plus signal scrub. If Jalor is riding comms or EM, it'll have to work harder." "And if it's riding biology?" Malik asked quietly. Jax's jaw set. "Then nothing we do matters." Elena forced her voice firm. "We act like it matters anyway." The door to the quarters slid shut. The indicator turned amber. Inside, Lila sat on the lower bunk, posture perfect, hands folded on her lap, like she was waiting for instructions. Alyssa stood by the medkit, fingers trembling around a sedative injector. Leo hovered in the doorway, caught between stepping in and stepping away. Elena keyed the intercom to the room. Her voice came through the speaker, filtered and thin. "Leo, Alyssa, maintain distance. No conversation with Lila unless necessary. If she speaks, you answer only with operational words. Do you understand?" Alyssa swallowed. "Yes, Captain." Leo's voice was hoarse. "Yes." Lilas looked up at the speaker as if she could see Elena through it. She smiled faintly. "Captain," Malik murmured behind Elena, "the void is changing." Elena turned back to the bridge's external cameras. The swirling darkness beyond the forward ports had thickened, as if the currents had slowed into syrup. The artifact's lattice, once a faint geometry far ahead, now seemed closer again, closer not by movement, but by relevance, like the ship was being narrated toward it. The beacon line on the nav console pulsed, still curling back toward the artifact. Even under manual thrust, their position readings drifted in ways Elena couldn't justify. "We're not making distance," Leo had said. Now Elena could see it. Their numbers weren't climbing. They were circling. Jax's fingers danced across a diagnostic map. Thrusters are outputting, dampeners are compensating, but the relative frame is shifting around us. We're moving and not moving. Malik's eyes were fixed on the artifact. "It's letting us exercise, like an animal in a pen." Elena's mouth went dry. Then we stop running and start cutting. Jax's head snapped toward her. Cutting what? Eleanor stared at the external feed, the lattice pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Its connection. To the ship. To us. We find the channel and sever it. Malik swallowed. And how do you propose we do that? Eleanor's gaze hardened. By giving it something it can't digest. Jax snorted. Like what, metal? Eleanor looked at him. Truth without confession. Action without intention. We stop thinking in ways it can mirror. We become unpredictable. Malik's expression tightened. Unpredictable is a fantasy. It's reading our patterns. It's... The ship's harmonic vibration surged hard enough that Elena's vision blurred. The bridge lights dimmed, not from power loss, but as if darkness was being politely invited in. On a side monitor, one Jax had, not rebooted because it wasn't meant to display external feeds, the image changed without authorization. A black field, then a single line of text. You are trying to starve me with discipline. Jax stared, lips curling. It's listening again. Eleanor felt the pressure behind her eyes. She forced herself to think of numbers. Oxygen, fuel, hours remaining. Cold logistics. The monitor updated. Discipline is just a different flavor of fear. Alyssa's voice burst through the comm channel from the quarters, shaky. Captain, she's talking. Elena snapped her head toward the intercom feed. Report. Alyssa's breathing was ragged. Lila, she said she can hear you better now. Elena's pulse kicked. How? The isolation field is active. Jax's face went pale. If she can hear through that, it's not EM. It's not sound, it's... Thought, Malik whispered. Elena keyed the intercom. Lila, stop speaking. Lila's voice came back through the mic, soft, composed, and so steady it made Elena's skin crawl. Captain Elena Torres, Lila said, you can't make a wall inside yourself. You are not built that way. Alyssa whispered, close to tears. That's not her voice. Leo's voice was strained. Lila, please. Lila cut him off gently. Brother, I'm tired. Elena's nails dug into her palm. Lila, are you Jalor? A pause. Then Lila laughed softly, not mocking, fond. I am a door, she said. Zalor is the hand on the other side. Malik inhaled sharply, eyes gleaming with terror and wonder. A living conduit. Elena's gaze snapped back to the external feed. The artifact's lattice was brighter now. The internal glow, night contained in a frame, had begun to expand. Lines inside it shifted as if drawing themselves. The structure was changing shape, opening, not like a machine unfolding, but like a throat widening. Jax whispered, almost involuntarily, it's a mouth. The harmonic vibrations synchronized again with Elena's heartbeat, and she felt, for the briefest instant, that her own chest was echoing the artifact's pulse, as if her body was being drafted into a larger circulatory system. Malik's voice trembled. It's feeding, Elena snapped. On what? We're not giving it confessions. The side monitor answered before Malik could. I do not require words. I require surrender. Elena's throat tightened. Surrender wasn't a sentence. It was a posture. It was the moment you stopped resisting because resistance hurt too much. Alyssa's voice broke over comms. Captain, she's asking me to remember. Elena's stomach dropped. Alyssa, do not engage. I'm trying, Alyssa said, voice shaking. But it's showing me anyway. It's showing me the lab, the... No details, Elena ordered. No details. Listen to me. Focus on something physical. Count your breaths. Touch the wall. Touch. A sound came through the comms then, thin, strained, like someone trying not to cry loudly. Leo. Elena, Leo said, and his voice was raw. She's looking at me like she doesn't know me. Elena's chest tightened. Hold. She's smiling, Leo whispered. And it feels like goodbye.
Elena turned to Jax. Can you increase the isolation field? Give them more shielding. Jax's fingers flew across controls. I can boost it, but if the channel is biological, I'm just making a better cage for it to work in. Malik's voice was barely audible. If the bond is the wire, then the field might trap the current inside. Elena's stomach clenched. Then we reduce the current. The forward ports shimmered. Not light, distortion. The void outside flexed like a membrane pushed from the other side. And for the first time since entering, Elena saw something beyond the swirl, a suggestion of depth, a layered darkness beneath darkness. Below the lid, the artifact's lattice opened wider, and the inner glow expanded until it looked less like a core and more like a wound that wanted to become a doorway. Malik stared, whispering, "The seam is thinning." Jax's hands shook on his console. "Captain, the ship's mass readings are changing." Elena snapped her gaze to him. "Changing how?" Jax swallowed. "We're getting lighter." Eleanor felt her blood run cold. Not relief light, not the promise Jalor had offered. This was literal, the ship's inertial profile shifting, its physical relationship to motion weakening, as if the horizon was being unmoored from the rules that kept it in the same universe as everything else. Alyssa screamed over the comms, short, sharp, cut off abruptly. "Alyssa!" Eleanor shouted. "Report!" Silence. Then Leo's voice, barely a whisper, came through the mic. "Captain, Lila just said something." Elena's throat tightened. "What did she say?" Leo inhaled shakily. "She said," he whispered, "that the artifact isn't Jalor's prison." Elena's skin went ice cold. "Then what is it?" Leo's voice broke. "It's the lock," he said, "and we're the key." The bridge lights dimmed to a near twilight. On the side monitor, the final line appeared, calm as a system update. "You have done well, now open." Elena's first impulse was to run to the quarters. Her second impulse, the one she trusted, was to stay where she could see the ship die. The horizon was changing, not catastrophically, not in a way that triggered alarms and automated protocols, but in the quiet, surgical way a body changes when something new begins to write instructions into its cells. The bridge lights were a dim twilight now. The void outside pressed against the ports like a fingertip against skin. The artifact's lattice yawned wider, its inner wound brightening with that impossible glow that made Elena's teeth ache. "You have done well. Now open." The words sat on the side monitor like an order disguised as praise. Jax's voice was tight, barely under control. "Mass readings are still dropping. Our inertial dampeners are compensating by lying. They're pretending we weigh what we used to weigh." Malik stared at the artifact. "It's unbinding us, detaching us from continuity." Elena's mouth went dry. Continuity. The law. The lid. She understood with brutal clarity what open meant. Not opening a hatch, not opening a door. Opening themselves. Letting the ship, the crew, the pattern of their minds, become a pathway. She keyed the intercom to the quarters. "Leo. Status." There was a delay. Elena imagined the isolation field swallowing sound. Imagined whatever thread Jalor had found slipping beneath it anyway. Then Leo's voice came through, thin and shaking. "Alyssa's on the floor. She's breathing. She's not responding." Elena's grip tightened on the comm. "Lila?" Another pause. "She's sitting," Leo whispered. "Just sitting, smiling." Elena closed her eyes for a half second and let the sting in her cheek remind her she was still her own. "Leo, listen to me. You are going to leave the room, now. You will not argue with her. You will not plead. You will not—" "I can't leave her," Leo said, voice cracking. Elena opened her eyes and saw Malik watching her, and she hated that he looked like someone witnessing a sacred rite. "You can," Elena said, forcing steel into her voice. "Because staying is what it wants. It's using your bond as a wire. If you keep holding that wire, it keeps carrying current." Leo's breath hitched like a sob. She's my sister. I know, Elena said, quieter. And that's why you have to step away. Silence. Then, very softly, okay. Elena exhaled. Good. Move. She cut the channel and turned to Jax. We're going to sever the nerve. Jax's eyes snapped to her. Tell me how without making it worse. Elena glanced at Malik. Malik, you said it can't directly harm. It needs participation. Agreement. Malik nodded, still staring at the artifact like it was a god. It needs a channel, a voluntary opening. Elena's voice sharpened. Then we make the only opening something it can't use. We control the channel. Jax frowned. Captain, that's risk, Elena finished. Yes. She moved to the central engineering console and pulled up the ship's internal mapping. Physical systems, comms pathways, neural-like data buses. She traced the lines with her eyes, looking for where the unauthorized signals had bled through. Display driver, diagnostics bus, internal speakers. And then the most terrifying channel of all, the twins' bond, which wasn't a wire in the ship at all. Malik, Elena said, what do we know about the artifact's energy signature? Malik finally looked at her. His eyes were wet, face drawn tight. It's oscillating, but it's not purely electromagnetic. It's informational, like a pattern that wants to replicate. Alyssa had called it a hand waiting to shake. Lila had called herself a door. Elena's mind clicked. Replication, she murmured. Jax leaned in. What? Elena pointed at the ship's core. We can't stop it from reaching, but we can decide what it touches. Malik's brow creased. You want to give it a decoy mind? Elena met his gaze. I want to give it something it can't digest, a closed loop. Jax's mouth tightened. Captain, I can build a loop, a contained signal circuit, but if it latches onto it, it could amplify and burn out, Elena said. Like overloading a conduit. Malik inhaled sharply. That could kill it. It's not a person, Alyssa had said. Elena clung to that. If she treated it like a suffering being, she'd hesitate. Hesitation was surrender. We don't have to kill it, Elena said. We have to break the link, force it back into the artifact, and then collapse the channel. Jax's hands hovered above controls, hesitant for the first time. We're talking about injecting a recursive feedback pattern into a phenomenon that rewrites reality. Elena's jaw tightened. Do you have a better plan? Jax didn't. He nodded once, grim. Malik's voice was small. Captain, if Jalor is telling the truth about something below the lid, if the artifact is the lock, then breaking it could... Elena cut him off. We are already breaking it by being here. We fixed the breach we made. She turned to the comm panel and opened ship-wide audio, not to the speakers. Those had been compromised, but to direct crew implants, the internal communication system that fed sound as vibration through bone conduction. She hated it. It felt intimate, but intimacy was already the battleground. Crew, Elena said, voice controlled. This is Captain Torres. Do not speak aloud. Do not engage with any visions. Focus on physical anchors. Touch metal. Count breaths. Repeat your name silently only. We are severing the anomaly's link. Stand by. She cut the channel before her voice could become another offering. Jax began building the loop. He rerouted diagnostic buses into a contained circuit, running them through redundant processes and back into themselves. He stripped away adaptive learning routines, disabled error correction that might helpfully translate the loop into something meaningful. He set it to cycle a pattern so mindless and relentless it would offer no hooks, a repeating sequence of sensor null values and maintenance pings, like a heart beating without emotion. Malik watched, pale. It will see it as a mind, he whispered. It will see it as food, Jax corrected. Elena stared at the artifact through the forward ports. The lattice was open now, like an enormous rib cage. The core wound pulsed in a rhythm that matched the ship's harmonic vibration. The void itself seemed to deepen behind it, a layered darkness that suggested something waiting under the lid. Elena felt her stomach twist with an old, primal revulsion. The feeling of standing above a hatch you were not meant to open, hearing something breathe below. Jax's console chimed. "Loop is built," he said, voice rough. "We can present it by opening a pathway, a handshake." Elena's heart hammered. A handshake. Consent. If she ordered it, she would be participating. She would be doing the very thing Jalor needed, opening. But if opening was inevitable, better she chose the shape of it. Elena looked at Malik. "You're going to talk to it." Malik flinched. "Me?" "You opened the conversation," Elena said. "You're the one it likes. You bait it, you keep it focused. You offer it the loop as if it's a gift." Malik's face tightened. "Captain, that's manipulation." Elena's voice went cold. "Yes, use it." He swallowed, nodding once like a man accepting penance. Elena keyed the side monitor, the one Jalor had been using. The screen flickered, and the familiar pressure behind her eyes returned. Attentive, pleased. Text appeared, calm. "Are you ready to open?" Malik leaned toward the sea console, voice trembling but steady. "Jalor, we cannot open fully, but we can give you a vessel, a clean one, a mind without pain." Elena watched the artifact pulse faster, as if the words had stroked a nerve. The display replied, "A vessel without resistance." Malik's throat bobbed. "Yes," he said. "A closed vessel, a safe one. You said you wanted to be seen without being fed. This is a way." Jax shot Elena a glance that said, "If this works, it's because we lied like professionals." The artifact's inner glow brightened. The harmonic vibration rose until Elena felt it in her teeth, her bones, her memories. Then the display wrote, "Give." Elena's mouth went dry. She nodded once to Jax. Jax opened the handshake. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every light on the bridge flared, bright, white, painful, before dimming again. The ship shuddered, not as motion, but as reality hiccuping like a system resetting. The loop began to run. Elena felt the pressure. Behind her eyes increase, then, suddenly, shift. Like a tongue tasting something new. The side monitor filled with rapid text, too fast to read, then condensed into a single line. "This is empty." Malik swallowed. "It's safe," he whispered. "Stay with it. Feed on nothing. Rest." The artifact pulsed violently, as if offended. The lattice trembled. The void behind it thickened. Jax's voice went sharp. "It's drawing harder. It's trying to interpret the loop." Elena watched the loop readings spike. The processors ran hotter. The contained circuit began to glow on the thermal map like a fever. The side monitor wrote, "You lie." Elena's blood went cold. Then the loop surged again, recursion accelerating, spinning faster, tighter, like a noose around itself. Jax cursed. It latched. It stuck in the recursion. The bridge lights flickered for the first time, not surrendering but failing. Malik's voice rose, panicked. "Captain, if it breaks, out!" "It won't," Elena said. And she didn't know if she was commanding the ship or herself. She leaned over Jax's console and slapped the final override. The loop closed completely. A sealed circuit. A mind made of metal forced to stare at itself forever. The ship screamed, not in sound, but in a sudden, full-body vibration that made Elena's vision white out. The artifact outside convulsed. Its inner wound flared to blinding brightness, and in Elena's skull, she felt something like rage and hunger collide with emptiness, then fold inward on itself, collapsing into a point.
For one breathless instant, the void went utterly still. Then the artifact's lattice began to close. Not gently, violently, like jaws snapping shut. The lattice snapped shut, not with sound, but with finality. The artifact's open geometry folded inward in violent precision, its lines collapsing toward the core wound until the glow compressed into a point so bright it seemed to erase itself. For one terrible heartbeat, the void beyond it became visible in layers, depth beneath depth, a suggestion of something vast, pressing upward against the seam. Then the light vanished. The harmonic vibration that had threaded through the horizon for hours ceased all at once. The silence that followed was not oppressive. It was empty. Elena's knees hit the deck before she felt them give. The bridge lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized at full brightness. Consoles rebooted in cascading rows. The side monitor went dark. Jax was the first to speak. "Mass readings normalizing," he said hoarsely. "Inertial profile returning to baseline. Dampeners responding clean." Malik stared at the forward ports as if afraid to blink. The artifact. Eleanor forced herself up into the captain's chair and focused on the external feed. The lattice still hung in the void, closed. No inner glow, no pulsing wound, just an intricate structure suspended in thick darkness, inert and cold. "Energy signature?" she asked. Malik swallowed, scanning. "Minimal. Residual only. It's dormant. Dormant. Not destroyed." Eleanor nodded once. "Leo." A pause. Then Leo's voice came over comms, raw but steady. "Isolation field is still active." "And Lila?" Another pause, longer. "She's unconscious," he said. "Breathing. Normal vitals. But quiet." Alyssa's voice followed, faint. "I'm awake. I think." Elena closed her eyes briefly. They were alive. "Stand by," she said. "We're getting you out." Jax leaned back in his chair, hands shaking now that the immediate crisis had passed. "Captain, the loop is still running." Elena looked at the engineering map. The closed recursive circuit glowed softly in the ship's core systems, cycling its meaningless pattern endlessly. "Is it isolated?" she asked. Jax nodded. "Fully sealed. No external ports, no adaptive routines. It's a thought that can't think about anything but itself." Malik's expression was pale. "And if it's still in there?" Elena met his gaze. "If it's in there," she said quietly, "then it's alone." Silence settled across the bridge again. But this time it felt like aftermath, not anticipation. "Plot exit," Elena ordered. "Ignore the beacon trail, manual only, slow." Leo's voice came through, strained but functional. "Understood." The horizon moved. This time, the movement felt real. The void resisted less. The swirling darkness thinned as if retreating, and ahead, faint pinpricks of distant starlight reappeared. Fragile, ordinary, beautiful. Elena stared at them as if she'd never seen stars before. Behind them, the artifact receded, smaller, dimmer, contained. As the ship crossed the boundary, though there was no visible line, only a subtle shift in background radiation and a recalibration of instruments, the silence changed again. Space resumed its low, familiar hum. The universe began speaking. No choral resonance, no pressure in the bones, just radiation, distance, the ordinary indifference of vacuum. Jax exhaled a laugh that bordered on hysteria. "We're out." Malik slumped into his chair, staring at the data scrolling clean and rational down his screens. "We have logs," he murmured. "We have everything." Alyssa and Leo returned to the bridge 20 minutes later. Lila walked between them, supported but conscious. Her eyes were open, clear. No wrong serenity, no distant smile. Elena stood when they entered. "How do you feel?" she asked. Lila hesitated. "Like I fell asleep somewhere I shouldn't have," she said quietly. "And something was watching to See if I'd wake up. Leo didn't let go of her hand. Alyssa's gaze met Elena's. There was gratitude there, and something else. Knowledge. Elena nodded once. Medical scans, full sweep. Then we set course for home. No one argued. They left the edge behind. Days passed. The logs were reviewed, encrypted, duplicated across secure storage. The recursive loop in the ship's core continued cycling, sealed and stable. No anomalous outputs, no new signals. The crew slept poorly. Even in normal space, Elena sometimes woke with the sensation of pressure behind her eyes, only to find the cabin dark and silent. On the 5th day of return transit, Jax requested a private meeting. He stood in engineering, arms crossed, eyes shadowed. "Captain," he said, "the loop's not degrading." "It wasn't designed to," Elena replied. Jax shook his head. "That's not what I mean, it's refining." Elena felt cold spread through her chest. Refining how? Jax turned his console so she could see. The recursive pattern was still there. Null values, maintenance pings, cycling endlessly, but the cycle time had shortened, minutely. "So?" Elena asked, though she already knew. "So it's optimizing," Jax said. "Without adaptive code, without input. It's learning how to loop better." Malik joined them moments later, summoned by the tone in Jax's voice. He stared at the display, face drained of color. "That's impossible," he whispered. Elena's gaze hardened. "Nothing about this has respected impossible." They stood in silence, watching the pattern. Cycle, 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 each repetition shaving microseconds from its own execution. Malik's voice trembled. "If it's refining, then it's not empty." Jax swallowed. "It's busy." Elena felt the memory of the artifact's closing snap echo through her bones. Dormant, not destroyed. She spoke carefully, each word chosen like stepping on unstable ground. "We severed the nerve," she said. "We forced it inward. We contained it." Malik looked at her. "Captain," he said softly, "what if we didn't contain Jalor?" Elena's pulse slowed in that dangerous way again. "What if," Malik continued, "we gave it exactly what it needed?" Jax's voice was barely audible. "A vessel that can't feel pain." Elena stared at the loop, a mind made of metal, sealed, recursive, refining itself in perfect isolation. No fear, no guilt, no resistance, no hunger. Just continuity. The law of the seam, the lid. A realization bloomed in her chest like frost. "Zalor said it refused to feed," she murmured. Malik nodded slowly. "Yes. And it said it was hungry because we were full." Jax looked up at her, dread dawning. "We emptied it." Elena's gaze returned to the looping pattern. Each cycle was smoother now, cleaner, more efficient. A thought. That thought only about itself. Perfect continuity, perfect separation. A mind that could exist beneath a lid without pressing against it. Elena felt the truth settle like gravity. They hadn't starved it. They had freed it from hunger. On the engineering display, a new line appeared, so small and unassuming it could have been a glitch. A deviation in the loop. One additional signal, inserted so subtly it might have gone unnoticed. A single, outgoing ping. Destination, unknown. Jax's hands froze above the console. "Captain," he whispered. Elena did not look away. The ping repeated. Cycle, cycle, ping. Not loud, not desperate. Patient. Like something tapping gently from beneath a closed lid, not to escape, but to announce that it no longer needed to. If this story unsettled you, if it made you look at the night sky a little differently, let me know down in the comments. Every like, every subscription, every signal you send helps this archive continue to grow and helps these transmissions reach others who are ready to listen. Subscribe if you haven't already, and until the next transmission from the archive, keep watching the dark.
It might be watching back,